Welcome to the Wake Up Call for the Soul podcast with Bill and Claire, where we go deep and wide on subjects intended to support our awakening to greater truth, beauty, goodness, freedom, joy, peace, harmony, and love. Welcome, everybody. And hey, Claire,
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. Like we're saying, not quite getting as much sleep as I'd like, but I feel like I'm still, doing okay productivity wise. So thanks for asking. How about you?
I am doing all right myself. I'm happy to be here today.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, so for today, sometimes we've had topics or subjects that we had agreed upon that we would discuss ahead of time. And today, I I heard this when I used to do or when I've done group facilitation. I can't remember where I got the idea from, but the word that's coming to mind is popcorn, where like you would have this group and instead of going around the room and making everyone respond to an answer or something like that, they would call it popcorn style, where it's just like, hey, anyone who has anything they want to share or ask or say or whatever can raise their hand and say, hey, what about me? Like, I have this question or this observation or whatever like that. And it's just the two of us, so it doesn't really apply. So I don't know why it's coming to mind. But anyways, so the word popcorn came to mind in terms of what we're doing because my guess is that we're gonna basically talk about whatever pops up for us or what's been popping up for us lately. So, I mean, I guess I'll just ask you, Claire. I mean, what's been popping up for you lately that you might want to actually chat about?
Ooh, yeah, that's interesting. I would say that I have been struggling to feel connected to my spirituality. I know I kind of mentioned that the other day.
Mhm.
Um, and I've also started to feel pressure, like my own internal pressure to pick a label or choose some religion or practice to focus on. And I've been having a hard time um, letting myself still be in the exploratory phase and to not have to pick something specific right now. So that
Mhm.
has been on my mind. And it's been a little bit stressful, but I try to let myself kind of just be chill with it as best
Mhm.
as I can. Because I
Mhm.
think as soon as things start feeling like pressure, it kind of really takes me out of my element. Yeah.
The pressure that you're talking about, it sounds almost like this, I'll call it a mindful temptation, where it's like, gosh, can't I just like settle down and pick something
Mm-hmm.
and just, when people are like, what are you up to? Or who are you? Or whatever, I'm X, like this is my label. And that sort of closes the book on it. I mean, is that part of what the temptation is for you to just kind of be like, yeah, I've arrived at a place and this is part of my identity and I mean, am I anywhere in the ballpark, or is it different for you from what you're talking about?
No, it definitely feels that way. I think it has to do with identity and being able to explain myself to other people,
Mm,
um, to understand myself, maybe to have rules even,
mm,
because it
mm,
feels like a structure and I feel like I
mm,
don't
mm,
have structure.
mm,
Um,
mm,
and I think I also feel some sort of pressure because I know that some people in the spiritual community really look down on anything that they label as like new age. But like
mm.
what do you define as new age? And do any of my beliefs fall into that? And if so, is that bad? So there's just kind of like a lot swirling around in there. And I think that I kind of enjoy a lot of elements from a lot of different belief systems.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I've had some thoughts going through my own, I call it my channel, kind of related to a little bit of what you're talking about, like this idea that it, how do I put this? So the thought that I've been having, and I don't know if this is the most elegant way to put it, or even the most kind and respectful way to put it, because it has to do with religion, and lots of people are really they find their religions really sort of important and helpful to them.
Hmm.
and everything. Kind of like you were saying, I feel like, religion provides a lot of people with structure that they find to be very helpful or comforting to them, in terms of their lives and things like that. But I've kind of been wondering, I'm like, gosh, what is religion good for? And and again, if anyone is offended by what I just said, I mean, it's sort of this honest inquiry. And I have come down to one place where I feel like, religion, because again, I mean, religion is a category, right? It's this concept that encompasses so many diverse wisdom traditions and philosophies and what people call religions and things, that are very diverse and that have been around for a long, long time. And all that kind of stuff. And yet, like the thing that I've come to is that like religion does one of the things it's really good at, it is kind of providing a structure for community, I think, when it's at its best, that any functioning religion, and actually I didn't come up with this idea. I got it from Charles Vogl, which I love his work. He has a new book out called The Art of Community by Charles Vogl, Vogl. And I love his stuff, but he gets his concepts on like how to build community and things that are helpful when you're building community. He gets most of his core ideas from his study of world religions. But that when I had asked that question, I was like, okay, that's one thing, and it's really awesome. And that's all I've been able to come up with so far. Like from my own perspective, right? I mean, I know that people who are all about their particular religion or multiple religions or whatever would have all kinds of other responses to that. But I was just thinking about, what good is religion to me? Like,
Hmm.
okay. And so it's something, but I'm guessing that it's not the kind of thing most people would say when they're like, what what religion is good for. Why do you think or feel that it's not okay, like that there are times or where you're in this mode of like it's not okay just to not be something, to not, you know what I mean? Like it's okay to not identify with this one thing or with, with these words or these concepts or things like that. I mean, what do you think is that's about for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, I think I've always been an anxious person, and I've always sought to understand myself and everything around me. And when I feel like I can't describe what's going on, it makes me anxious. And it's something
Mm-hmm.
that I've tried to work on and be a little bit more okay with just being in a
Mm-hmm.
kind of flow state and not having everything pinned down. Um, I find that when I get more stressed out in my day-to-day life, those feelings resurface a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think it's interesting that this coincides with feeling a bit foggy spiritually and feeling a little bit disconnected. I think it all kind of just points to maybe some stress in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But it is interesting how it all ties together.
If I say anything and you're just like, Bill, what are you talking about? Just let me know because I can't remember who I've had which conversations with and be like, did we talk about this? So, like I have this phenomenology of being that includes what I call the material mind, which is the brain. It's related to the biological systems of the body and to aspects of mind that are energetic that are not inherently functions of the brain that have the potential to exist outside of the brain,
Mhm.
and so I think about this aspect of our being the one that, kind of we have trained and taught this aspect of our being that its job is to protect us, it's to keep us safe, it's to bring us comfort and security and all these different kinds of things. And so what we give it to work with are basically programs, subroutines, things that we have picked up from our rapport, our relationship, our connection with what I call the human condition or the fabricated world of human invention, all this stuff that people have made up that actually has no connection to divine reality. So when you share a lot of the things you talked about, like what comes up for me is like that there are these things that we've picked up. Again, we picked them up like we got them honestly, right? We got them, we took them on because it was like, well, I just like this is helpful, right? Like if I can tell people who I think I am, and I can use words that they think they can understand, so I apply a label and say, I'm a Buddhist. And people are like, oh, okay, I think I know what you mean when you say Buddhist. But they might be like, well, are you a Theravedic Buddhist or are you a
Mm.
Mahayana Buddhist? And then you're like, what do those mean? Like, I'm not saying you, but anyway, like, so even when we go down a rabbit hole of identification, we like people could ask us questions. We're just like, I don't know. Like, I just identify as Buddhist, like, because I don't know
Right.
all these different schools of Buddhism, and well, what's your take on the Dalai Lama, and what's your take on blah 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 blah. Just go down these rabbit holes and things. But like our material minds, like they love, I learned about this concept of things that our brains, at least there's a book by, I think his name is David Rock. It's on my bookshelf. David Rock. Yeah, Your Brain at Work. And he has a concept in there that I found super helpful, where he talks about like social values that we as human beings tend to associate with our survival. And so we take them like super seriously. And like whenever they
Mm.
are threatened, we go into survival mode. Like we go into fight, flight, flock, freeze. I don't know how many other F's there are in that, but where we go into this mode of like protection or running or defense or whatever to basically keep ourselves alive, even though the thing is not a direct threat to our survival, like a large sharp-toothed monster that's about to eat us or something. Like it's not that. It's anyways. And so he calls it the scarf concept. And so the letters of the word scarf stand for status, meaning your position within a socially constructed hierarchy. Um, let's see, the C is for certainty. So anytime our material minds, our brains feel like our certainty, our sense, our belief in certainty is threatened, like we freak out. And then the A is for autonomy. So anytime we feel that there's someone that's kind of messing with our freedom to choose for ourselves, that's considered as a survival type of threat. The R is for relationships. So any relationships that we consider to be important to our survival. So these could be friends, family. I mean, shoot, even anybody, any relationship that someone deems to be important to them. If they see that relationship is threatened by something that someone does or doesn't do or whatever, then that can trigger this kind of scarf, this survival response. And then the last one, the fifth one, is fairness. So like, any time that we perceive particularly ourselves or sometimes other people like not being treated fairly, like we can see that as a survival challenge, right? Because I mean, if you think about it, if people are being treated unfairly in a community, and especially if it's myself, well, then that lack of fairness could threaten my survival, right? Because I could be
Mhm.
denied what I need, food or money or love or care or whatever it is. I was doing a development sit. Actually, that was just yesterday, and it was really interesting. I kind of realized during that sit that I was like, that my mind and my body, like my material mind and my biological body, like they have been working ridiculously hard my entire life to keep me safe, to protect me, to be hyper vigilant against any threat to my survival. Like particularly those four scarf concepts that David Rock, I think, brilliantly has kind of pointed out. But they're on guard for everything. And so, like, they're running billions of calculations every second, trying to figure out, like, am I safe? Am I going to survive? Like, is this a threat to my survival? What do I need to do? Blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's kind of, when I thought about, like, sort of the the programs that I currently have my material mind and my body running in order to keep me safe, right? To help me to survive, to get through this harsh pseudo reality that I like to call the fabricated world of human invention. Like they're doing their best to help me do this. And in that sit yesterday afterwards, I was like, gosh, I mean, how much energy, how much life, would be freed up if I could help my material mind and my body to let that go, to just be like, you know what, like I I have this connection with source now. So, thanks guys. It's been awesome. I'm kind of sorry I burdened you with all of these programs and all of these things that I have made you hyper vigilant about. And I'd kind of like to play a different game now. Do you want to play and all that? And I was just thinking, like, if I were able to do that, when I'm able to do that, like the amount of energy that would be freed up, I sort of my mind is boggled, when I consider the massive amount of calculations that these aspects of my being are doing, trying to keep me safe. When, I mean, the thing that I know is that conceptually, I know that none of what these guys are doing is really keeping me safe. Like, I was taught and trained and socialized and indoctrinated to think that these things are keeping me safe, but I mean, do they really, or are there other things that I'm not in perception of that are actually central to my safety, to my security, to, me being me and doing what I'm here to do, sort of a thing. So, okay, anyways, wow.
Yeah.
Some thoughts. I welcome your questions or reflections on that. I didn't expect that to go like that.
Yeah. I think the part about wanting certainty for survival makes a lot of sense.
But yeah, I mean, certainty makes sense, right? Because, like, if your mind thinks it knows what's going to happen, if it thinks it can predict with a high degree of certainty what's going to happen in the near or even midterm, or shoot, I mean, for that matter, long-term future, then it gives the mind kind of this sense of like, okay, like we're going to be okay because, I can predict, or I believe I can predict what's going to happen. I feel like that's going to do it. And yeah, I think that certainty dimension is like, it's almost like not even its own thing. It feels to me almost like, because he's broken it out in this scarf concept, but all of those things, any threat to my certainty, my feeling of certainty about anything that I associate with my survival, rightly or wrongly so, that that is something that I am going to address one way or another. And then the material mind has the ability to choose another program to be like, oh, okay, if this aspect of my certainty is threatened, maybe what I do is I engage in a game, not necessarily consciously, actually, but it's worked for me before. So I engage in a pattern where I do my best to make other people feel guilty so that they will feel obligated to give me what I need, right? I mean, that's like
Mm.
one program among billions of possible permutations, right? And I mention it just because I see it so often. It's kind of like, wow, that's really not fun. But yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
and I think it's so interesting because, right, the human condition, this kind of framework, this structure, that has all of these ideas embedded within it about what is right and wrong and what is good and bad and all these different things, it also then uh, pushes people to, right, make choices about things in many cases that would be better left unchosen, I think. Um,
Mm.
like you talking about you feeling this kind of internal pressure, which my sense is your material mind just picked that up from your world, giving you the sense of like, well, it seems safer to make a choice here. But I mean, but it's entirely possible that because the thing about choices is that choices, or like the word decision, it means that something has been cut off, right? When you decide something, it's like, okay, I had different ways to go. I am now cutting off something like, incision, decision, right?
Hmm.
So, well, and yeah, with, of course, this anyways, so you're cutting off possibilities in order to explore one. But I mean that there are these things, these realities in life where it's not always the best or the right thing to decide to cut off possibilities, and it seems to me, I mean, especially given where you are at in your life, in your journey, that it makes a lot of sense for you not to decide, not to choose certain things because you desire to explore, to be open to things, and even, like, because there are different identities available for you, right? I mean, like one of them could be explorer. I am an explorer of whatever you want to call it, reality or everything or myself, or I'm a discoverer. I'm discovering stuff and it's awesome and I just like discovering things. Or like you could take on identities that don't necessarily connect to a label, and I mean these identities have the potential to be limiting too, but they seem at least more liberating to me than saying like I'm a Buddhist, like when it's like,
Hmm.
I don't know if I'm all about that because I'm finding really cool stuff in these other places that don't really seem to conform to, Buddhism. So yeah, it's one of these challenges because I think like in the future, in this future that's coming for humanity on this planet, like there won't be all of this pressure for people to choose things before they're ready to choose them, to decide things before they're ready to cut off possibilities, to even seek to place labels or identities upon themselves or others, where they'll have this much more fluid sense of who they are and of their world, because a lot of the barriers and boundaries that we've put up, out of the material minds, I mean, it's separations which then create fears and anxieties associated with those separations that aren't real, but they are believed to be true. They are treated as if they are real, and therefore they create constrictions and restrictions and energy flows that would not be there otherwise, except for the belief that people, think that these things are helpful, which gives them a sense of control and instead of like a sense of flow or movement, with various energies and intentions and things like that. So
Hmm, interesting.
yeah, these are the things that I think about because I recall in graduate school, like I'm fascinated by identity, and the thing that triggered it for me was I was in graduate school and I went to a presentation and this person made this statement, and I think it might have been the first thing they said, or maybe it was in the middle of the presentation, but whatever it was, it just like struck a chord with me, and I've probably shared it already, and if I have, okay, well, I guess maybe repetition is helpful. But they said, the most powerful predictor of human behavior is identity,
Ooh.
and as a social scientist, as someone who's very interested in why people do what they do, and even the how and the when and the who they do it with, that really resonated with me. And the thing is that there's sort of, to me at least, there are two basic types of identity that I'm aware of. There is our true identity, like who we really are, like as a being in the wholeness of our beingness. And then that I do not believe that was the type of identity they were talking about, but that's the one I'm really reaching for. The type of identity they were talking about is what I call who I think I am. And so, who I think I am is everything that I've taken on that I believe, or even, uh, there's stronger words, the things I'm absolutely convinced I am, and also the things I am absolutely convinced I am not. And then a big part of identity that I've found for myself is not only those things, but all of the things I resist, all of my resistance to who I am, whatever words who I am sincerely kind of convinced that I am, that I resist, and who I am like thoroughly convinced that I am not, that I resist. And then, but also how those things impact all of my relationships, like my relationship with my body, my relationship with everything and everyone in my world, with everything that comes into my field of awareness, and I feel like that was the identity that they were talking about, and I just, I see it in myself. I've had these ideas like I'm not this or I am this, and when I think about, because a major part of what my studies in terms of religion have been around is what I'll call it the Judeo-Christian traditions, and if you look in Genesis when Yahweh says to Moses when he's like, who are you? And Yahweh says, I am, or I am that I
Yes.
am, the meaning of Yahweh. um and so notice that there's nothing that follows that, right? Like it is just a statement of I am. Like I am being. And I am not going to put any kind of adjective or qualifier or limitation on that. Like I simply am. And I feel like, as humanity, as we make this journey into the future that we're headed into, more and more of us will be able to release, these words that we associate, the words that follow the I am, I am this, I am that, I am whatever, I won't put things into it, but everybody knows that there are things that we say about ourselves. And I consider like the statement I am to be the most powerful creative and determinative statement that any being in this universe can make, because I am is this very fundamental statement of being, right? And then whatever you place after it, whether it's a job title, whether it's a role that you play, whether it's whatever, it has any verbal expression that way has the potential not just to include all of the goodness and awesomeness of those various things, but also all of the aspects of the fabricated world of human invention that are overlays, that are attachments, that are things connected to these ideas. So for example, like if I say I am a mother, there's nothing wrong with that statement, right? Except to the extent that I am not aware of all of the both not just the light side of mother, but all the other stuff that is associated with mother. For example,
Yes.
archetypes of victimhood, archetypes of guilt, of nagging, of what do I want to say? This this martyr, this victim template, this, even aspects of patriarchal domination that are typical with regard to mothers because of how women and men have related for many, many thousands of years on this planet. So there's all these other things that can be connected to the I am a mother template that if we're not really clear about those things, we can kind of be dragging them along, and being like, well, I'm a mother and this is my most important identity. Is that really going to be your primary identity, say, even when you're in your 80s and your child is in their 60s? Like it's just,
Yeah, I heard somebody, oh, I don't remember where, they said that anything that comes after I am is the ego. And I didn't know
mm,
how to take that because I still don't have a full grasp on what the ego is. There's so many different
mm-hmm,
ideas about the ego. I thought that was just an interesting statement that someone made. Um,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
but I think
mm-hmm,
it is interesting what you're saying about what you fill that in with and how it has almost like the the downsides or the negatives kind of like included in that. That's interesting. Or just like what did you call it, the dark side of the label or something? Yeah, just like interesting. I'm trying to
mm-hmm.
think. Hmm.
Yeah. I am a mother, in its purest form. It's just a fact, meaning that I am, or I consider myself to be in the role of someone who is like a mother to one or more beings, for example, right? I mean, I'm trying to get at the essence of the thing. But then, because of the human condition, because of the mixed bag of this pseudo reality that humanity has created, there are so many programs, sub identities, routines, ideas, concepts that are kind of drug along with the core central idea of what a mother is and what a mother does, that's the burden that comes with it, if we have not cleared that stuff within ourselves, and again, I mean, to the extent we clear it within ourselves or clean it or erase it, then it's also more available for other people. So like I said, right, I mean, I've seen very associated with the mother archetype, a very close second is, are things related typically to patriarchal male domination, toxic domination, and then also related to those overlays or templates or programs, are things like the martyr archetype. So there are these kind of archetypes, these stories, these dynamics, all this stuff that gets attached to the pure or simple idea of motherhood. and it goes the same for father. I mean, anything you put on it, like I'm an engineer, it's like, okay, so if you're an engineer, then there's all this stuff associated with it. Again, it's a mixed bag because it's the human condition. And so, like the game I always played with myself, because I'd kind of picked this up in graduate school and I had contemplated it, like I did my best to never say I am anything. Like I'm sure I haven't done this with any level of perfection or authenticity, but like particularly when it came to my jobs, to my paid employment, I never said I am this. Like I always said, oh, this is what I do, or this is the role I have, or, like these kinds of things. Like because I realized the power of that. And I would see people who were really identified with their jobs, and it just seemed like this absolute prison to me. So I was always very careful, particularly when I talked about my employment, my paid employment, be like, I do this for money, or this is what I do, or this is the role I have with this organization. And if people want to ask about it, then that's fine. I can get into those details to describe more detail if they're curious, if they care what it is I do in this role and what the responsibilities are and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. But I did my best never to say like I am this, because I knew I wasn't. I knew that this role would someday end and that I am not that. It's a passing thing, and I wanted it to be a passing thing. I did not want to be, this role, whatever it was, for the rest of my existence, because like that felt like prison.
Right, right. Yeah.
Yeah. We look forward to you joining us for the rest of our conversation in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Wake Up Call for the Soul with Bill and Claire. May we love ourselves and all more and more with each passing moment. We wish you the very best and highest. Until next time.